we have learned how to draw individual tree species. Now, let's see how to use these individual tree drawing techniques. If we create a combined plant arrangement, what will it look like? We have previously discussed how to draw individual trees. Now, let's look at how to combine the trees, shrubs, lawns, and ground covers we have learned about. We will also include coniferous and broadleaf trees. Here's an example of a building entrance, where we will plant some trees. First, I will sketch the basic outline of the building to provide a reference. These are the walls. These are windows and doors. Let's assume there's a path and a platform with steps leading up to the entrance. This is a path. Now that we have this environment, let's add the trees. When drawing large circles, we may need to use a compass, because the largest circle on a template can only be so big. If we want to draw an even larger circle, we use a compass. In actual practice, we always draw to scale, but for now, we'll practice without worrying about the scale. Later on, we'll switch to drawing to scale. Suppose we want to plant a large tree here. This is about the right size. The advantage of using a compass is that the center is accurately determined. Below it, I've decided to plant a slightly smaller tree that intersects with it. Right here. Next, I'll plant some shrubs. Shrubs can be drawn directly using a circle template. For example, I'll plant 3 shrubs here. 1, 2, 3. And here, I'll plant 3 other shrubs. I'll plant 5 shrubs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 shrubs here. Now I can add some more trees here. For example, I'll plant a tree here and then add 3 shrubs next to it. This means that when we combine these trees, we often start by positioning them, determining where to place each tree. This tree can be drawn a bit larger. So it's clearer when demonstrating the concept of canopy avoidance. We remove this one. We have drawn everything. First, what method should we use to draw this large tree? This large tree is the tallest, with all the other trees beneath it. When we draw the trees on top, they will cover the ones below,
making them less visible. To address this, we use a technique called canopy avoidance.
Imagine the canopy of the tree is transparent, so you can see the trees below. Since it's transparent, we don't need to draw it too complex. For example, I'll use the WC method we discussed earlier to draw this large tree. Now the large tree is done.
Next, we'll draw another tree.
I'll design this tree as a coniferous tree. Using the coniferous tree drawing method. As mentioned, it follows the canopy avoidance technique, allowing me to see the trees below. So, I'll draw through it, as otherwise it would not be visible according to normal rules.
To give it some three-dimensional effect.
I'll add a few more lines. Now, the trees are drawn. Next, let's draw the clusters of shrubs. These shrubs are also coniferous trees. So I'll use another coniferous tree drawing method. Since the tree is largest, let's imagine it to be transparent. But not all trees can be imagined as transparent, as it would make the drawing chaotic. We'll consider this tree as opaque. The 3 shrubs below it will be partially covered by it. So the parts covered by the large tree will not be drawn. However, beneath this large tree, we can see through, and thus the shrubs can be completed accordingly. Next, let's draw the shrub cluster. What method should we use for this? We can use the polygon method. First, determine the planting points and then draw polygons around them. Once the polygons are drawn, now that we've combined these trees, we can use various methods to illustrate them. For example, I can use the branch drawing method for this tree. Adding a few branches to clearly distinguish it from other tree species. When we later create the legend for the drawing, we can indicate what type of tree each one is.
This is the tree with branches drawn. The branches can be drawn a bit thicker.
For these 3 shrubs, I'll use the cloud line method. Any part of the shrubs that is covered by the tree should not be drawn. Assuming this area is a lawn.
I'll add some dots to represent the grass.
Over here, let's say we have ground cover materials, although it includes grass.
It is depicted as ground cover.
So we use the ground cover materials technique we discussed earlier.
If we add hard as CA
such as using anchorizone wood in this area, we need to represent it with lines indicating the material's texture. Typically, for construction drawings, we can draw according to the actual width of the anchorizone wood. That for design proposals, it's not necessary to specify the exact brand or width. To highlight the characteristic strip pattern of anchorizone wood, it's important to draw it with clear, straight lines. This indicates the wood is laid vertically.
If horizontally, draw horizontal lines.
My lines are slightly skewed as I didn't use a ruler, but the idea is to draw each strip distinctly. If using bricks, you should use bricks with irregular shapes. Now that we have the basic drawing completed, everything combined, we notice it looks a bit flat.
Why is that? Lack of what? We've discussed shadows before.
Have we not drawn them yet?
Now let's draw them together.
If you drew this tree with a compass, you should also use a compass to draw its shadow. For example, this tree we drew earlier. Let's assume the sunlight is coming from the top right corner. Move it a bit to this side. Outline it like this. Move the circle a bit down to the right to create a shadow like this. The same goes for the shrubs. We drew them with a template, so we'll continue using the template for their shadows. Regarding the shrubs, which one is taller and which is shorter? Does the taller one cast a shadow on the shorter one? We don't need to consider that for a cluster, since it's treated as having the same height. The same applies here. A cluster is considered to be of one height. So we don't need to think about the shadows between them. It's somewhat like a single layer.
I'll draw it first.
I'll draw it out first. Of course, while you're drawing, you can think about the shadows and draw them as you go.
Let's draw out the shadows, so I won't forget which circle I used. Now that everything is drawn, it's time to add the shadows. Let's start with this one. Since we imagine the canopy as transparent, we can still see the shadow of this. It's sharp, so we'll draw the shadow sharp as well. For the shadow, I can simply fill it in black, but I could use diagonal lines, or even leave it to be colored later, to represent the shadow using colors. Here, I'll just blacken it to show the effect. This coniferous tree is drawn basically as a circle. I didn't draw each needle because it's too small. Once shadows are added, a diagram gains a strong sense of depth. You see, this side is flat, but the corner's depth is immediately enhanced. Let's finalize the large circle. Leaving some gaps, particularly in the lower right corner of the shadow. Next, this tree looks like a single mass, so we don't need to consider the height differences between them. This creates a sense of depth. Next, let's enhance this sense of depth. We'll continue by drawing cloud lines for the shadows. With that, our drawing is complete, including the shadows. We can shade this ground cover a bit darker, as it's under the tree. So, in the areas under the tree's shadow, we can darken it slightly. Many common sense aspects can apply to our drawings, make the image more appealing. This includes the lawn and the shadowed areas. We could also add a bit more to the lawn. Intensifying the dots slightly.